What's good, everyone? It's your boy Natsu with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. And I got a guest on here who I think personally does not need an introduction. He's been on the channel before. He puts out great content in the Washington football team community, brings in guest after guest, and is just a great guy overall. So Big Doug from the Big Douglas Show, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We got a lot to talk about. But first and foremost, for the few people out there who might not already know who you are, can you please introduce yourself to the channel?
Big Doug, the Big Douglas Show. You can find it on all platforms at Big Douglas Show. And listen, I just love talking football. So Nazi, you're one of my favorites. So I'm always excited when we can do this. So let's get it cracking.
All right. So, and I also apologize, guys, for the stream last week. I was dealing with stuff with my family. So I apologize for that, but we got a lot to talk about once again tonight. First thing I want to ask you about, Doug, is the Washington game from Thursday night, right? Because we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week. Do you think, first and foremost, what do you make of Taylor Heinicke's performance? And do you think he's earned the right to start for Washington for the rest of the season, like he said after the game per the media?
Well, he's probably definitely earned the right. I mean, frankly, who's left? Kyle Allen. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that Kyle Allen has earned the right to start. So let's start there. The numbers also suggest that, I mean, through, I don't know, a game and three quarters this year, he's in the top 5 for almost every statistical passing category. So he's been fantastic. And listen, people have been hard on me because I've been hard on him. Fact of the matter is, I would love for him to be fantastic. Problem is, he is not. Last week was the first game that he started that he finished. So that's where I'm at with Taylor, right? Is like,
Yeah.
I love it. Beat more passing yards, as I understand it, than any quarterback through 3 games. Again, that sounds great, but let's get more. Let's finish the season. So I like Taylor Heinicke. There's a lot of things that he does well. Staying on the field hasn't been one of them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Taylor Heinicke, I mean, he put up a masterful performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in January in the playoffs and was great last week. I just think I agree with you. I mean, injuries always seem to happen with Taylor Heinicke throughout his short career. So hopefully he could stay healthy enough to play, 2-3 games, let alone like an entire season.
Well,
but I think
notice
right now,
he didn't rush a bunch last week, Noddy.
Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right. Definitely limited the rushing attempts there, and smart on him and smart on the coaching staff. But I think this week, I mean, we got the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk a little bit more about the matchup and our thoughts on it later on. But I think he might have to use his legs a little bit more this week because the Buffalo secondary is no joke. Got Tre'Davious White. You got a couple good safeties back there. I mean, do you think he potentially could rush a little bit more this upcoming weekend?
I'm with you. I think that's necessary. We talked to the Bill sideline reporter, Sal Capaccio, on Wednesday, and he said exactly that. The secondary is better than you expect, and they've built the team with defensive linemen. If this sounds familiar, let me know that they run in waves of players and a bunch of first-round draft picks themselves. DMV and Virginia folks ought to remember that Jermaine Edmonds is the middle linebacker on that team with speed and power, and they're excited about him too. So listen, the two teams, as we'll discuss today, should remind you of each other. It's like the Spider-Man meme, right? The teams are built similar because these two coaches grew up together.
Yeah, no, I agree. Shout out to a couple of the people in the chat who have joined. Adrian, first one in the chat. Actually, I think it was Brandon, but Adrian was the first one to join us live. Patrick West, always with the support. Uria as well. And yeah, I mean, Uria's prefacing what I'm about to talk about, and that's the defense. What are your thoughts on the lackluster defense performance, particularly last Thursday? And do you think it could get fixed, sooner rather than later?
When you sit down at a really expensive steak restaurant and you order the filet medium rare, and they bring you out chuck well done, you're disappointed. I mean, it is what it is.
So you talked to the wrong person, though. You're talking to the wrong person,
Well,
Doug, because
mm-mm.
I might be one of the people
You're
out
a
there
young
who
man. You're a
like both of them.
hamburger at a steak restaurant, man. That's okay.
Yeah,
We'll get you there in time, young fella. But I can assure you, that's what it is. We expected a top 5, top 3 defense.
yeah.
It's not what we've gotten so far. What are Rico? And that's okay. That again, Ron Rivera teams tend to get better as time goes on. It's a
Last year
really
too.
young defense,
Hmm.
Nutty. With William Jackson is an upgrade over Darby, but frankly, they've asked him to go from man to zone. I thought they played more man. I think they played man 23% of the time last game, which is so you're expecting a top 5 corner. You're paying them to be a top 5 corner to switch schemes. You've got a rookie in St. Juice who I've said all along I thought he'd get early snaps. He's gotten early snaps, which allows them to kick Fuller inside. Fuller inside at nickel is a different story. He's not been as good as people expect. The interesting thing with Fuller is sometimes that slot help is from linebackers, and linebackers haven't played well. So I don't know. I got on a tangent there, but yeah, the defense hasn't been as good as we've expected them to. But that's because we had super high hopes, right?
Yeah, I agree. Though a couple guys though that are continuing to play bad that I did not have high hopes for. Although JP Finley kept hyping one of them, and that is Landon Collins. Landon Collins and John Bostic have been terrible thus far, in my opinion. I mean, they could not. Daniel Jones and the New York Giants ran pretty much the exact, or they had the same exact game plan that they had the last couple of times they played us, right? Read option, use Daniel Jones' feet, and he scorched us. Like it was absolutely unacceptable that he was running roughshod down the field like a top 5 running back. I mean,
He rushed
he
for
racked up the
95 yards.
95 yards. One of his touchdowns, he did get one touchdown, but another touchdown got called back because of a penalty. But it was unacceptable. I mean, we were falling for it. Like defenses were falling for RG3 with the read option, right? And RG3 and Alfred Morris in that combo here in 2012. So I don't know. I don't know. We have a problem with rushing quarterbacks, and we got Josh Allen coming up, one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the league right now. I mean, at least in terms of his touchdowns over the last couple of years. But yeah, I think the secondary will get better, much like they did last year, right? I think William Jackson
Yes.
the third. I think he's played solid thus far. Although you would like to see him play a little bit better, but I think he will continue to improve with more reps. Kendall Fuller, I agree with you. Since that hot 5-game streak last year where he had like 4 interceptions in 5 games, something like that, he's been pretty inconsistent to say the least, if not like terrible at times. So hopefully in the nickel, he'll get better. He'll be what we paid him to be. But I mean, we are here in DC. This is the Washington football team, right? We've seen stuff like this happen in the past where we pay guys big money, don't pan out. But he's a hometown kid, so he does have that motivation going for him. And I'll also say, with Benjamin St. Juice, he didn't play too well that first game, right? He didn't play too well, but I think he did get better again with more reps, and I think he'll continue to get better over the course of his rookie season.
He's young.
Yeah.
He's young. Again, if you'd have taken a poll of the whole fan base, I think, and said, do you think Benjamin St. Juice drafted right after the draft, will he start day one? People said, no. What are you, crazy? They've thrown him in there, and Ron said over and over again, that's what they expect. They're going to throw these guys in there. It's a youth movement. It's as Pooh always says, it is year 2 of a rebuild. We got excited last year, so there's a lot of new parts. You mentioned the money. I think that's interesting. We'll talk about Landon Collins. People will say he's starting for the money, but if you talk to anybody that spent a lot of time in Richmond, they thought he looked healthy and exciting. People were excited about Landon Collins. Now, there are rumors coming out of Ashburn that he's freelancing and not sticking to the assignments. I don't know. I'm not there in the meetings, so you can't comment on that, but it is gaining steam, and also people are wondering why he's taking precedent over Cameron Curl. So I don't know. A lot going on there with money,
Yeah,
Hope
yeah.
it's not the money.
Money definitely throws a wrench in things. Landon Collins, though, people always get this wrong, right? I do have respect for him. I mean, he played for the Alabama Crimson side. That is like my favorite college football team outside of this area. So I do respect what he did there. And even in New York, I mean, there was a lot of talk, I think way too much talk about him potentially going back to his 2016 self after a torn Achilles, right? He missed most of last season, and people automatically thought that he was going to be maybe not as good as 2016, but even like halfway there, which, I mean, he didn't really show us that in his first couple years in DC. So I thought that was not going to happen, but I do have respect for him, but he hasn't been playing too well. Cameron Crowe, I think, Cameron Crowe and William Jackson III are pretty much the only two people in the defensive backfield that I've thought have played pretty well the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you agree with that.
In the backfield, I do. They've been playing McCain a bunch, and I think he can play. I mean, his record, put the numbers up. But again, in a new system, and I wonder, and I think this is how it works. I'd like to see the McCain Curl pairing a bit more too. But I think they throw the whole entire defensive playbook at them, at all these guys, and then look and see who can figure it out. Right. And so what up, Rio? It takes a little bit of time to figure that out. It's the one thing that Ron stressed about the most in the preseason is you could have 5 or 6 all-pro defensive backs, but if they don't feel good together, if they're not gelling properly out there, it doesn't do you any good, because particularly in that secondary with so much space to operate in, you've got to have a feel for the guy next to you, and he's got to have a feel for you. And the corner's got to know that if he press bails, that you're going to have him. If he hold tights on the line, you're not going to make him look like an ass in the back end. So I really kind of think that's where we're at more than anything. I think the talent's back there. It's the communication and who kind of fits together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And on your point about you really just need to have the right combination of players, doesn't necessarily have to be 5, 6 all pros or anything. We last year, right towards the second half of last season, we were starting Jeremy Reeves right at safety, Cameron Crowe at safety, Kendall Fuller at corner,
Jeremy Reeves,
and Ronald Darby.
Please come back.
Yeah, Jeremy Reeves. Yeah, I actually got his autograph at the last training camp with the old name, right, and stuff. So that was a moment.
Nice.
But yeah. But no, he was a good guy, and I definitely agree with you. At least he should be on the team, or at least getting more reps for the defense, because I don't know, the safety combo right now is not working.
Which is the surprising thing, Nazi, right? Because the best defense that they put on the field last year was at the end of the year. We're missing a couple of pieces that they've subbed out. Ronald Darby, can I say this real quick?
Yeah.
Ronald Darby, a full year last year, and Washington offered him a nice contract. He said, no, thank you. He got paid a little bit more. He went to Bronx. You see, he's out for the year.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
He's out for the year. I mean, God bless him, but he's never been healthy except for the last year with us. So, shout out Ronald Darby. He had a hell of a year last year.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the 1 year he spent with his hometown team was pretty much his healthiest year in his NFL career. But since we're talking about the defense,
Washington in general, Nati, think about that. How much? Real quick, my bad to cut you off, but think about how long the team's gone through injury concerns. It's amazing. They brought a whole new staff with them, and I swear nobody gets hurt. Except Curtis Samuels.
Yeah, except Curtis Samuel, who should be back next week, but I don't know, man. I hope this is not a Paul Richardson type of situation where a guy gets an injury in the offseason and we think he's going to be back for week 1, and then it turns into missing an absence of 2 to 3 games during the regular season, and then we think that he's going to be back right after a short-term IR, but then he gets placed in a long-term IR, and we think he's going to be back at some point during the season, maybe in the second half, and then it turns into a season-long injury, and then potentially even more than that. I hope it doesn't turn into that type of situation. But yeah,
it's probably why they're resting him now.
Yeah, fair. But we're talking about the defense. We talked about the defensive backs. We got to talk about the defensive line. what are your thoughts on Montez Sweat, right? I think he has 2 sacks at this point, if I'm not mistaken. Jonathan Allen, who I can't tell you, Doug.
Well, it's frustrating, right? Because that's kind of where the franchises told you they plan on hanging their hat.
Yeah.
Um, and listen, I've talked to a bunch of different people that know way more about football than I do. And the thing about the modern NFL is if you flip this thing, right, where
Yeah.
if you got a great defensive line, we'll just throw a short game on you. And that's kind of where it's a little frustrating because you don't know whose fault it is. If they get the ball out, I think the Chargers game, they were getting the ball out in less than a second. I mean, I don't care how good your pass rush is.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do about that?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah. We saw that with
I'm
the
not
Bucks game
exactly
too.
sure. I
With
think
Brady.
the problem is it's a
Oh, I think Big Doug cut off. He did tell me there were weather issues where he was at. So, can you guys still hear me? I hope you guys can hear me if you're in the chat right now. Let me try removing. All right. Okay.
Sorry,
All right.
I dropped out on you there.
It's okay. It's okay.
I don't know where I dropped. What I was trying to say though is with the defensive line, that Chargers game, they got the ball out in under a second, right? On
Yeah.
average. So you spend all
And
your money on defensive line, and that's traditional football. New
Yeah.
football suggests that might not be where you want to spend your money. So this will be an interesting year to kind of see whether that old school football mentality where you build in through the trenches, particularly on the defense, is still what's important or not.
Yep. And we saw that as well against the Buccaneers in the playoffs, right? Tom Brady, obviously he's the GOAT, but Tom
Yes.
Brady with the quick game, I mean, he was beating up on that Washington defense that was better last season. So, or at least was on a better roll. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you there. But I mean, let's talk about Chase Young specifically, right? Chase Young is a guy that got a lot of hype in the offseason. I repeatedly said that Montez Sweat had a better season last year. And I thought that Montez Sweat by the end of last season was the better player. I know that was a hot take, but that's what I felt then. Still feel that now. Montez Sweat 2 sacks, Jonathan Allen 3 sacks, another guy that a lot of fans thought was overpaid in the offseason and thought, he basically was getting paid more than what his value was to the team, and it's all about sacks. So why did he have so few sacks last year if he's such a special player? That was something that I got constantly in the chat throughout the offseason. And I told people he is our best defensive lineman, if not second best defensive lineman. And I think he's showing it so far with the 3 sacks, not just the 3 sacks, but the constant pressures. What are your thoughts on those 3 guys, particularly Chase Young, who, I mean, a lot of people thought was going to win, and I thought this was kind of crazy. A lot of people thought was going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Well, I mean, that wasn't crazy to think because
he
with
was
the
a
monster last year. So, I mean, I get why you'd think that.
Yeah.
Can I say this? We've had this conversation. You and I have had this conversation about how the D-line plays out.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised. Again, we've talked about this. I thought Deron Payne's the better D tackle, and you couldn't keep both.
No.
Okay. Now, here's what I'll say. Jonathan Allen's get off this year, his explosion, I didn't see it like that last year. And I watched like a lot of John Allen film because I'm a defensive line type guy. He wasn't this explosive last year. And they're going to pay him almost $3 million a year less than the Giants are paying Leonard Williams. So kudos to Washington for getting that done because he's a pillar of what they want to do. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he had one great season last year in a contract year, just for people out there. Because
that's true, but they signed him for his leadership. Like he is a core. Remember way back when we're talking about core Redskins? I mean, that's what Jonathan Allen is. He is a leader, and then people respect him. That's why he got the money.
I was talking about Leonard Williams. He had one great season last year, so inconsistent before that point. Yeah, and injury prone.
We talked to Mark Ross, who used to work for the Giants front office, and the problem with what they did with Leonard Williams is they traded a bunch for him. So they were. He always said the NFL. Remember this always is that contracts is a game of leverage. There's a game on the field, and then there's a game with these guys about how they get paid and how they get respected in the league. When they gave up multiple draft picks for Leonard Williams, they gave him the upper hand, and they were always going to have to overpay him, and they did overpay him, in my estimation. But they underpaid Jonathan Allen and are going to get a steal. And again, they paid him for what they saw. They paid him for what I saw. I thought they got a good deal when they signed him to that. But his get off this year is different. He is more explosive this year than I've seen him in the past. Chase Young is overly excited. That's the way I see it. I went back and rewatched that last game, and he was throwing Bamas to the ground and watching guys run by him, right? So yes, you destroyed that guy, but they are using your aggression against you now, and I think that will continue. And Montez Sweat ought to be better than Chase Young because to me they're similar players, and he's been in the league longer.
Exactly.
He's got 2 more grown-ass man years under his belt. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I see that. Montez Sweat was a steal. They know he was a steal. I mean, go back. The coaching staff didn't want number 7. They wanted Montez Sweat at 15. Right? I mean, let's go back.
I think it was Brian Burns and Montez Sweat. They were debating over one of the 2. Absolutely. And they both turned out to stud.
Yes, that's right. And maybe they would have preferred Burns. He obviously went next. And probably Burns was the pick at 15. If Gruden and company had their choice, and they didn't. So it's also an interesting way of building your roster. They gave up a third to move up from the second to get the extra. Now that 5th year option, because they got it in the first round for him, I think will be beneficial as they try to juggle keeping all 4 defensive linemen. And the more and more I think about it, Nazi, I think they will find a way to keep all 4 of them.
Okay. They'll play some salary cap magic like the Saints did in the last offseason, where they were like millions of dollars.
The Saints have proven that you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, for sure. I know that you do have to head out in about 15 minutes ish. So we're gonna move really quickly through this. So the next question I want to ask you before we're getting into the matchup, because this has kind of been a neat storyline over the last couple of days, and that has been Taylor Heinicke and his beer and his sponsorships, and potentially being signed with Heineken, but then ultimately Bud Light swoops in and gives him the sponsorship deal. I mean, again, this is sort of a fun question, but what do you make of all that this week, and how disappointed are you in Heineken for just dropping the ball?
Well, Heineken's not out of it yet, I don't think. They definitely have not gotten they've dropped the bag, as they say, so far. And he has not technically signed with Bud Light, although they did send him the sweet as gift swag bag, if you will, the box with the but listen, I personally prefer Heineken to Bud Light. Although there's nothing better. I mean, listen, if you're going to drink all day on a Saturday, maybe Bud Light's the way to go, because they're basically, oversaturated water that I can drink all day. But listen, good for him. The piece came out today, right, that he had asked for a coaching job.
Yeah.
And Turner had to say, listen, don't take the coaching job yet. So
school.
Yes, Heineken, if you're listening, step up to the plate. It makes too much sense. It's not a Bud Light-akin. It's a Heinicke. So I don't know. Either way, I prefer IPA over any of them anyway.
Okay. I don't know if you could fit that into his name though. But no, I definitely agree. I mean, Heineken, come on, step up to the plate, get your guy, and just run with it. But I didn't have this question prepared, but I mean, this has been talk around these streets, around the social media streets that is the Washington football team community. What are your thoughts on Jamie Collins and him potentially being brought over here to DC, or
I see the
any
Hawk
linebacker?
TV. I see the Hawk TV bringing that up, and you're right, it has been around. Stunned. I would be stunned. They've had the option to go check out Benerick McKinney, who I really like. who is still out on, vacation. I like Zach Cunningham. By all accounts, the Houston would be open to listening. And the Falcons aren't a full-blown rebuild, and they've got Deion Jones down there from LSU, who I think fits what we want to do here. I have said many times the coaching staff here is built off arrogance, and that's okay. They're allowed that because they're really smart, really good at what they do, and they ought to know linebackers more than anybody. I mean, if you look at the staff, so I will continue to give them a pass on the way they're building the defense until they don't do it right. I like that they're giving Jamin Davis time to kind of slide into the role, but I don't know, Hawk. I mean, what does Jamie Collins offer at this point? Was he 32 now? I mean, he's not a young man anymore. What kind of assets do you have to give up to him? And again, somebody's letting him go because they don't want him, and that makes me nervous.
Yep, I agree. And I think that KJ, if you're not going to go after KJ Wright in the offseason, who was the better player last year, and I mean, I know it's a popularity contest at the end of the day, but I think it shows a lot that the NFL players voted him number 67 on their top 100 list, and at least put him on that list, right? So if you're not going to go after him in the offseason, then going after Jamie Collins at this point in the regular season, when you already have,
I completely agree with you, and I've said it, and I've said it about a week ago, like. Literally, if they were worried about linebacker, they could have gone the KJ Wright route a month ago. And Bidnart McKinney, who doesn't cost you anything. He's like literally out there.
Yeah.
Just waiting for a job.
I agree.
I'm interested.
I just think as long as this linebacker group has John Bostic as a starter or getting, a ton of reps, I just think it's going to suffer. I think it's going to be average at best on a good day, and won't be anything more than that. I know Jamin Davis had a pretty good game last week. I think a pretty underrated game, right? I think he was
second amongst rookies in PFF, right?
Yep. Second ranked, and hopefully he could be a stud here in DC. But I think you need at least two legit linebackers. And Cole Holcomb, he could give you some splash plays. We've seen that in the past.
Frustrating, right?
Yeah, but it's pretty consistent.
Does he frustrate you the same?
He does.
I thought he'd be better this year. Like this was the prove it year, right?
Yeah.
Like this was the year for Cole Holcomb to say, "Give me mines," and I don't feel like he's done that at all. That frustrates me because we could be looking, linebacker first round again next year, which is crazy.
We need a quarterback, Doug. We need a quarterback ASAP. That's what we need. If Taylor Heinicke doesn't pan out,
that's not Heinicke for you.
Okay, let's have that talk. Taylor Heinicke.
Somebody asked me this the other day. Let me steal your show real quick, Nadia, and ask you a question. Let me flip this around because I love it when people do this to me.
Okay.
You answer this question. If you were a Bills fan, does Taylor Heinicke scare you coming into town?
The only thing that I think would scare me with Taylor Heinicke is just the limited snaps that he's had over the last couple of years, and really for Washington, right?
But as a Bills fan, that probably excites you, right? Like that ought to make you feel better as a Bills fan.
Oh, as a Bills fan?
That's the question. If you were a Bills fan,
no. If I'm a Bills fan,
does the Heinicke-led Washington football team scare you?
Right now, no. But potentially with the Curtis Samuel edition,
the game starts.
Yes.
Right now, if you were a Bills fan, does Heinicke scare you if he's coming to town again? Your Buffalo Bills.
Right now, no. Yeah. No, because he would have needed to show me more up until this point. Obviously, he had a great game last week. Had a great game against the Bucs. But he would have needed to show me more. Also, if I'm a Bills fan, I'm super confident in that defense right now. I mean, 35-0 complete shutout of the Miami Dolphins. I know
they are stat. Now, the Dolphins stink. I mean, that's all there is to that. But
I mean, the Dolphins' defense is solid.
They were getting after him on that AJ Espinoza. You talk about Jonathan Allen with the get off. I hadn't expected AJ Espinoza. People thought he should have been in third round because his get off wasn't good enough.
Yeah,
smoking fools. So, but all I'm saying is somebody asked me that the other week, so I was just curious your thoughts.
Yeah.
And it puts that into perspective a little bit. If I was like if I was the same Bills fan that I am a Washington fan, Taylor Heinicke rolling into town doesn't make me real nervous at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think we're at as a franchise. Like, I don't think other teams are nervous about Taylor Heinicke, even as good as he's been.
Yeah.
And again, through 3 games, I think he's in the top 5 passing yards, completion percentage, and a whole bunch of really nice things.
Yep.
I don't think he scares people.
And the comparison I think is very apt for Taylor Heinicke, that of all people, a guy that I don't know if you feel a different way, but a guy that I don't really like listening to, and Colin Cowherd, he mentioned the comparison between Taylor Heinicke and Gardner Minshew. And I think that's pretty apt. Gardner Minshew, a lot of people forget towards the beginning of his career, right? Very beginning of his career, he was putting up big game after big game. Passing yards was just absolutely insane. 300 plus passing yards. Was racking up a couple touchdowns every game. But like at the end of the day, can you trust Gardner Minshew to being your starting quarterback for an entire season and to carry you into the playoffs, if not further? The answer to that is no. And I think with Taylor Heinicke, although he's performed very well, and I think he could sustain this if he stays on the field. That's if he stays on the field. And I think
That's right.
needs to show me more, right? He needs to show me more in terms of him being available. Not necessarily him, playing well. Him being available. Like sometimes there's a saying out there, availability is the best ability, right? Like you need to be available in the NFL as a starting quarterback to really carry a team to where it wants to go. And I think right now, we need to see more. That's my thing, right? Like I'm not a hater. I'm not like, oh, Taylor Heinicke hasn't shown me a lot over the last couple of weeks. He did. I think his bounce back after that terrible interception last week was impressive. He drive the team down the field for that game-winning field goal. I think that was impressive.
Incredible. It's incredible how long 45 seconds is in the modern NFL.
True.
I mean, seriously, Nadi, think about it.
Yep.
You give a man, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking this on the couch. I can only imagine what they're thinking about on the field when they look up there and they're like, fuck, 45 seconds. We're in trouble, man. Defense better play well, because you can move the ball up and down the field so much with 45 seconds left. And it's incredible. And not to string this long, but you know who I like to compare Heinicke to is the guy he's replacing, Fitzpatrick. To me, those guys are really similar. Arms kind of similar, mobility. He's got a little more mobility. I mean, Heinicke's like a 4.5.5, 4.6 guy.
Fitzpatrick
was a 4.8 guy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yes, but I'm saying go back and do the same. I mean, these guys are smarter than they are athletic, and get it. So I don't know. That's the comp I like. Is just a replacement of what we got.
Okay. I think it does say something though that. I mean, you had the entire offseason period, and then they still decided to go with Fitzpatrick as a starter, right? I keep holding on to that. Yeah, I keep holding on to that. Like, why?
Fine. They tried to give up assets for Stafford. We know that.
Yeah, that sucks, because I was high on Stafford throughout the offseason. I know some people, like my good friend Corey out there, was not high on him and thought that because of the fact that he didn't show much in Detroit, that he wasn't going to lead a potentially Super Bowl winning team out there in Los Angeles. I've been very high on him, and it sucks. It sucks that we didn't trade for him, or
we tried.
The trade wasn't complete.
In fairness, we tried.
Yeah,
we tried. Yeah. We didn't have a Jared Goff to send Detroit.
True. That is true. Oh, hey, he came by. He came by at the right moment, right after I said that. Corey from on the warpath coming in. Thank you. See, Corey's a good guy, because he apologized for his mistake. He knew that he made a mistake throughout the offseason, downplaying John Allen and what he brings to the table for the Washington football team. And kudos to Corey. And hopefully we can get Peyton Barber next.
Little known fact. I was the first ever guest on the Warpath.
Wow. Okay.
First ever guest on the Warpath. Big shout out to my man there for having me on.
For sure. My ears are burning. Well, you knew it was coming. John Allen. I mean, he was also a Peyton Barber guy. Kind of a Peyton Barber guy. Very much a John Bostic guy. Look how that's panned out. I mean, hopefully Corey comes on soon.
I was always a John Bostic guy too now.
Really?
He's just slow. He's too slow. I like John Bostic out of Florida. He's too slow.
You know what frustrates me, Doug, is that people love to say, John Bostic is so smart. He knows where the offense is going.
Then why is he on position all the time, Noddy?
Huh?
Then why is he out of position all the time?
I
Is
was
what
just
I'd
about to
respond to
say,
that.
it's one thing to know where to go. It's another thing to be where you're
Be
at.
there.
And he's never where he's at. He's never where he's at. I always see the
That's
back of
why
his
they've been
jersey.
running the 5-1-5 that I kept telling everybody we need to run. Get him out of there.
Oh, oh.
Shark attack defense, 5-1-5.
Hopefully we could I don't know. I can't even say hopefully he'll improve this season because I know exactly what we're gonna get out of him. But hopefully Jamin Davis could, you know.
I like that they're not trying to force Jamin Davis into doing anything he's not
Sure.
capable of doing yet.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I like when I call the coaching staff arrogant. It's only because look at how much experience is outside of the offensive coordinator. I mean, look at the rest of the staff. There is a lot of experience, and they just feel really comfortable.
Yeah.
And what they're able to do, and their understanding of what the players are able to do. They know what Jamin Davis can do right now.
Yeah.
And there's no reason, like a quarterback, there's no reason to force him out there with a bad offensive line to throw 5 interceptions a game.
No. Corey, no. So I think it was because the statements were very close to
Bostic
one
is
another.
smart. He's not athletic. He is smart.
Yeah,
It's not that
yeah.
it's not that he isn't smart. He's not athletic.
Yeah, because I said Corey was a fan of Bostic, or at least thought kind of highly of him, way more highly of him than I did. But I didn't necessarily say that you thought that he was smart. I'm just saying, like, a lot of people out there, even media people, were like, John Bostic is a smart
I do.
guy.
That's the whole point of having him on the team because of his big. Look at the big brain on Brad, right?
No. You I mean, look at London Fletcher. Look at how smart he was. But he always was where he was supposed to be.
Make
He wasn't
sure to
necessarily
go
the
vote
fastest
for
guy.
Make sure to go vote for London Fletcher and Brian Mitchell up for the Hall of Fame this year. By the way,
True. For
do
sure.
that now.
For sure.
I put the link on my Twitter feed, so go vote for them. Let's get those boys in the hall where they belong.
Yeah, and especially Brian Mitchell. It's about time. It's about time. I mean, what all-time scrimmage yards leader, if not like top 5-ish, I think, or something like that.
Number one.
Yep.
Number one. B Mitch.
Yeah. That's right. So yeah, the last question I want to ask you before getting into the matchup. We just have a couple questions for the matchup, but the last question, Roger brought this up in the comments, or not even question, but comment. Chase Young not necessarily having all the pass rush moves right now at this point in his career, which I don't think is too big of a problem. He is in his second year, but I mean, what do you make of all this talk on social media that he's just not necessarily where he's supposed to be at this point as the number 2 overall pick in the entire NFL draft, or that Chase Young, he's still a raw player at this point?
Well, they didn't pass on Herbert to get, Ryan Kerrigan, no disrespect, or Brian Arakpo, no disrespect. But it's year 2.
Yeah.
And what you did get is a face of the franchise, which we haven't had before. I mean, when's the last time Washington football team / Redskins had a player on the NFL's site's header?
RG3?
You know what I mean? Like Chase has been there. He moves the needle as far as the league's concerned.
Yeah.
Is he a refined product? No, it's year 2.
The beginning of year 2.
Chip. I mean, imagine the chips he's getting. I think Ron said that. I'd have to go back and look through some of the press junkets, but I mean, they realize that the 2 of them are getting chipped a whole bunch. It's probably also why you're seeing Jonathan Allen being more productive.
But
yes, is he Von Miller in year 2? No, probably not.
Number 2 overall pick.
But I think he just gets worked up about. I think he gets overexcited. I think he gets overly worked up. I think he gets so excited about dominating people at the point of attack that he sometimes forget that we're in a mental chess game here too. DNs, I mean, that is also like we're trying to outsmart you before we get to the tackle.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I'll just say though, I mean, some people maybe in the chat might forget this, but if it wasn't for Joe Burrow and his record-breaking year, the best season really in college football history, if it wasn't for that, Chase Young was going to be the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, and I think, when you're comparing him, this is why I thought the defensive player of the year, even if he does continue to improve this season, I just don't think he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year because of the fact that you have guys like Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, who's actually bounced back and played pretty well for San Francisco, although their defense overall hasn't thus far in the season. You also have guys like Von Miller, like you mentioned. Like if you're comparing Chase Young to those guys at this point, I just don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's there. And I know he's the number 2 overall pick. He should be there. A lot of fans will probably say that. We invested a freaking all the draft capital, right? Like number 2 overall pick. That's insane. But he's just not there yet. And I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think he will get there. But I think the talk of him being, oh my gosh, Doug, this 15, 16, 17 sack guy this year, I just think that's just, it was just too much. It was too much. And I know, us Washington fans love to hype up our players, especially if we draft them very high. But I just don't think he's there yet. That's my thing. I just don't think he's there yet. I think Montez Sweat
easier to plan for the ends than it is the tackles, right? I mean, it's easier for them to scoot the running back out with a tight end over. Again, that's why I think you'll see a bunch of that this year. Not Chase Young's fault. Now, does Chase need a second and a third move? Probably. Is he? How old is Chase Young? 22.
Yep, 22. Yep, 1 year older.
I mean, come on. I don't. It's going to happen a bunch. I mean, but what you know is you got Montez Sweat who ran a 4.40. I mean, Chase wouldn't run one, but I've heard from people close to the program up there that he runs about a 4.4 flat. So, I mean, again, that man has been used to whooping people off his natural ability all his life. But the one thing I'm not concerned about is Chase Young putting in the requisite time needed to get better. Right? Like that's the one thing that you know about Chase. I mean, I don't know him personally, but you just know the work ain't the problem. So I expect he'll be better. And again, they've done this 5-1-5, the 5-2-4. So they're installing new schemes this year that they didn't use last year. So maybe it's taking some time. They've dropped him a bunch in coverage this year.
Yeah. Oh no, Roger. Oh no. I wanted to vomit when he said this.
No, that's ridiculous. He's not Jadeveon Clowney by any stretch, for sure.
All right. Sorry, it looks like we both had tech difficulties tonight, but
technology.
Yeah, technology.
Well, look, if you splice it back together, let me just say this. That's ridiculous. First of all, you'd love to have Jadeveon Clowney on your team. He may not be rushing the passer like he did at South Carolina, but he's been amongst the top 5 in rush defense his whole entire time in the league. Now, I will say this. I said this on my show the other day with Nate Coleman. We did not draft Chase Young number 2 to, crush the rusher. We paid him to hit the quarterback. But that's okay. Listen, people complain. That's what we do, right?
Yeah, especially us fans.
Yeah,
that is a fair point. But I said Chase Young wasn't going to even get to 15 sacks this year. I thought he was going to improve off his rookie year, right, where he had 7.5 sacks. I thought he was going to get to potentially 11 or 12. But I thought predictions of him getting 15, 16, 17. I know he didn't record a sack until week 3 last year, but I feel like we needed to see more improvement even at this point in the season, week 1, week 2.
It's going to be hard to get to that number 2, Noddy, because think about who else is going to get sacks there, right? Like they're going to send the safeties, they're going to send the corners. You've got Jonathan Allen, they will send Deron Payne, and you got Montez Sweat. So for Chase Young to get 18 by himself,
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, there are other people going to get close to 10 sacks in that unit.
Yeah. Jonathan Allen.
Well
A
on
guy
his way.
that
He's already got 3, right?
yeah, very. And we're in a 17-game season. Got 15 more games to go. Now I want to shift over though to the Buffalo versus Washington matchup. And I'm sorry guys, my mic is a little iffy, but I had to detach it and dealing with tech difficulties here. But we're gonna move on. Will Josh Allen get back on track against this Washington defense, as many quarterbacks in seasons past have done? No matter how good this defense is, it always seems like we're the get right game when it comes to opposing offenses. Or do you think it will be that defense in Washington, our defense that we hyped up so much, that actually returns to form?
This thing to me is so interesting, Nadi, because to me it's a coaching battle. I mean, think about the coaches that we've got on here and the amount of experience they've got. First of all, McDermott and Rivera both go back to Andy Reid with the Eagles. They both spent time in Carolina when McDermott was Rivera's defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Rivera has said repeatedly now that they have looked at McDermott and Bean's rebuild in Buffalo as kind of taking pieces from what they did in North Carolina and figuring out what they wanted to do different. Josh out. So think about this. Leslie Frazier is on that staff too. 15, 16 years of experience. Brian Dayball. I mean, we're talking about a lot of experience. Our offensive coordinator is the new Jack on the scene. All the rest of them have a ton of experience. So I'm Jack Del Rio. I mean, I'm excited to see the brainiac matchups here with guys that just have lived and breathed football for the last 20, 30 years. So I find that to be, from a football mind and intellectual property standpoint, I just find it to be fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen had one good year to me. Right. And he had a tremendous MVP worthy season to where they lost in the AFC Championship game. So give him his propers for that. But as Pooh says about our franchise, that we're in year 2. I mean, that man's put up one good one. You got to show me another one before I get super excited. They're 1-1 like we are. So got a ton of talent at the quarterback spot there. Got to prove it to me.
Agreed. This is a bad time to say it off of that performance on Sunday, but I was as high on Zach Wilson as I was on Josh Allen. Like those are two of my guys like coming in to the league, and I thought they would both, maybe it would take them some time, and I think for Zach Wilson it would still take some time. Again, this is terrible timing for an interception game, but I think both of those guys, Zach Wilson will be a future stud. Josh Allen's already a stud, and although he started off slow in the season, I think he will get back.
Zach Wilson. People love Zach. Theismann came on with me and Pooh around Thanksgiving last year before the draft and told us he was the best quarterback in the league. And I looked at him and said, "You must be crazy." And he said, "You listen to me. That's the best quarterback." I said, "Well, I'll take your opinion on quarterbacks, but I frankly don't see it." But there are a ton of people that are Zach Wilson truthers, and I don't get it.
Even Chris Sims. I said this. I said this a couple of days ago to like one of my friends, but Chris Sims is one of those guys out there. When it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, especially, I trust him more than pretty much anybody in the game right now. He's hit on so many guys. I mean, he was the guy that said Lamar Jackson. He ranked him number 1 on his quarterbacks list, I believe, over guys like Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen, which of course was very smart, and some other guys as well that were drafted ahead of Lamar Jackson. Even I believe, guys that were drafted like way ahead of Lamar Jackson, and he put him number 1. And he just has a very good streak of hitting on quarterbacks, and very much his critiques being on point. Zach Wilson was his number 1 guy over Trevor Lawrence. I was never that guy who said that Zach Wilson was over Trevor Lawrence, but I always thought that Zach Wilson was worthy of the number 2 overall pick. I know guys like Nick Wright out there continue to bash Zach Wilson and think that Justin Fields should have been the number 2 overall pick. Fields, I don't think is ready. Zach Wilson, I know he had that 4 interception game. Again, terrible timing, but I think he will be very good this season, and he will be a very quarterback in New York. And I think the Jets found themselves a quarterback for the first time in a very long time.
What do you think the score is going to be this Sunday?
I got Buffalo winning 28-21. That's what I got.
That sounds about right to me. I was thinking we can get up to about 24.
Mm-hmm.
It's to be the first man to 30, right? That's the new NFL, man. You better be first to 30.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. And it's interesting about this Buffalo game because Sean McDermott said it when they asked about winning with defense. He said, yeah, we're trying to build the best defense we can. We also still understand you can't win games 17-14 anymore. 21-17. Those days are over.
In today's NFL, nope, not anymore. Not anymore. But I again, like this is another person, Yin Yang experience, who's very high on Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been very high on Josh Allen in the past. And again, I think Josh Allen is going to get right against this Washington defense. He might not be as impressive as Daniel Jones was last week with his feet, but I think that Josh Allen will play very well. I do, very quickly, before we sign off, last question, I want to ask you, will our offense do anything against this Buffalo defense? Right? You got the Terry versus Tre'Davious White matchup. That's probably going to be the biggest one. Antonio Gibson, will he run? I mean, the Buffalo Bills have not given up much yards on the ground.
Oh, the defense is fantastic. Go look through that Buffalo. They're loaded.
Bills defensive line, Washington offensive line, all those things. Will our offense do anything against this defense?
The sideline reporter for the Bills told us he only expected the Washington to score like 10 or 13 points. I don't see it that way. I think they will scheme up the short game, get around the defensive line they got the same way people do to us. Again, it's a race to 30, man. That's the NFL these days. I think it's tough to be in a position where you think Washington wins this football game, but I think they can. I think they got enough weapons. And listen, Heinicke is not playing because he wasn't good. He just couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if he can stay healthy for a full 4 quarters and do the things that they expect him to be able to do, he's been in the system for a long time. You can tell that Scott Turner feels comfortable calling plays with him because he understands it. Also, again, the coaching staff and Ron Rivera has said this is a real test game. Chase Young has said it, and I say it too. This is kind of where you figure out where you're at, because you don't know where you're at with New York, because I don't think we know who the Giants are yet. I don't think they're as bad as people think.
Yeah.
The defense is really good.
Yeah.
And so we'll find out. I think it's going to be a closer game on Sunday. People think the line from Vegas, take what you will, but Vegas, those lines are important. They know, I mean, they don't do that for nothing, and went from like 9 to 7.5. So I don't know what that means, but it means something.
I agree with you. I think Terry, though, won't have the best of games against White. I think that'll probably be the matchup that will determine this game.
But they're like us. They're not going to move the corner a bunch, right? I mean, they're going to play zones and stick to it. So there's an opportunity.
All their defensive backs.
That's why it'd be really interesting to see what the offensive coordinator does. There is an opportunity to move people around the field and get matchups, because they typically, like us, stay in a zone.
Agreed. Ying experience mentioned this earlier. I did see this. Heinicke had a great performance last week, but he did leave a lot on the table. I don't know if you got a chance to see Kurt Warner's film evaluation.
My response to that is, don't they all? If you go back and study all 22 film, you'll find that Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning leave a lot out on the field. If they lose that game, that sounds a whole lot worse. We're crushing them. In a win, it's like, oh, just remember, here are the plays. They leave them all out there. But yes, there was an opportunity to throw 500 yards the other night.
Cam Sims, I mean, he was
don't get me started on Cam Sims.
Oh, you think he's going to get more involved?
The coach has said that he will.
The coaches say a lot of things, Doug.
I think he will. Cam Sims is better than Adam Humphries. I've been on record for that for almost a half a year now.
Adam Humphries did have that nice spin move, turn first.
He had 7 catches for 44 yards, Nutty.
I know. You're right. I'm just saying he showed at least something last week, more than he showed in week 1, which, we're not paying him much, so I don't expect.
Give me more Cam Sims, please.
Okay. If Cam Sims doesn't drop the ball like he did in a lot of games for the second half of the season, right? I mean, everyone remembers that Pittsburgh catch one-handed, but he had a lot of drops towards the last, couple of games, right? That could have cost us some of those games that we ultimately ended up winning. So hopefully he keeps that, together. But I agree with you. Cam Sims should get more reps. But I know you have to go, Doug, and I appreciate you so much for joining me this week, especially after last week in our planned stream. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for joining Ying Yang Experience on the Warpath. Corey, the John Bostic Fanatic, Roger Smith, everybody in the chat, Hawk TV from earlier, Uria, Rico Proctor, Rambling with Rio, another great Washington football team YouTuber, as well as Corey, and Adrian Alledge, again, being the first guy. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been really fun. And even though, last week I wasn't able to do the live stream and really give you guys the post-game recap, because we are a family here on DMV Sports Zone. We had Abdullah do a lot of content. We had Evan post a lot of things. We had Noah as well with his fantasy football expertise, because he is the CEO of a fantasy analytics company, all putting out good content on here. Guys, we're 20 subs away from 1,000. We've been at this point for a good month and a half. I've noticed it. Don't think I haven't. And we've been stagnating, but we're gonna get there, and we're gonna continue pumping out some great content for you guys. Doug, I should have started off by asking you for the outro before going into my spiel, but do you have anything to plug to the good people out there who may be watching?
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Night was have a good time. This was great too. It's at Big Douglas Show, anywhere, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you catch a podcast. We're on YouTube. Do 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We've added a Tuesday show with Nate Coleman on Inside the Numbers. We're always glad to hear his. But we do a reaction Monday. We'll catch a beat reporter from the opposite team for Opposition Wednesday, and then we usually have a local beat reporter for our preview Friday. Tomorrow we'll be doing it with Nikki Janvala from the Washington Post, which we're very excited about.
Awesome.
Very excited about.
That's awesome. I love that schedule too. That sounds dope. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to follow Doug on all of his platforms. And although we got this going a little bit late, I will make sure to include all your information in the description by the end of this, when people watch this on replay. But thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great evening, and let's go shock the world, beat the Bills. Although I don't think it's gonna happen. Let's go and shock the Bills. Let's do it. Peace out.